Hey, hello everyone. This tutorial is all about maintenance. So some of you might already be in maintenance right now. Some of you might be about to go into maintenance. Some of you might be about to come out of maintenance. There's a few different areas that you guys are going to be on the spectrum. Some of you may have never gone into maintenance. People with more weight to lose, they can stay in a fat loss for a longer period of time. But people that don't have as much weight to lose, say under 20 kilos, I like to make sure that we set firm timelines for the fat loss, usually no more than 12 weeks before we start reversing out and get into a maintenance. So I'm going to explain in this video what maintenance is, how to reverse out of a calorie deficit, the importance of maintenance, some of the hurdles that people come across with maintenance, and how to navigate it. So the first topic would be the purpose of maintenance. Maintenance is so important. You want to ideally eventually spend most of your year living in maintenance. Maintenance is a misleading term. It sounds like you're staying the same, but it couldn't be further from the truth. Maintenance is the best time to work on your mindset, your relationship with food without the deprivation and the restriction and the hunger that a calorie deficit can give, and also to build muscle or fitness, strength, to work on those goals. Maintenance is a great time because you're fueling your body appropriately, and your body prefers energy, preferably maintenance or slight surplus, to build muscle. So as some of you might know, as a beginner, you can build a foundational amount of muscle in a deficit, but that will come and reach a limit. People often get frustrated at this point where they're like, I can't build anymore. I'm not changing. I'm doing everything right, because you need to eat more calories. You need to hit maintenance or even a little bit above maintenance to really push yourself, to give your body the fuel it requires to build that muscle. Muscle is a metabolically active tissue, which means that it requires energy to hold on to and to maintain. So when you're in a calorie deficit, it's not the prime time to be building this metabolically active tissue that's going to require energy to hold on to. Your body's not going to prioritize that. So yes, you will build a foundational amount, especially if you have extra body fat. It will be easier for you, but eventually you will reach a limit, and that's when you want to hit maintenance. So maintenance, as I said, it's good for those things, for mindset, for muscle growth and development, for strength, for fitness, all of those things, because your body has all of that extra energy, or the required amount of energy, to be able to fuel those processes and events and activities. But also to restore metabolic and hormonal health. So when you're in a calorie deficit, your hormones can all become a bit out of whack. Initially, everything's kind of okay, but then after a few weeks, your body can start to catch up and realize that you're not fueling it appropriately. And this is where it can start to throw all of these signals at you to try to get you to eat more. And some of these come in the form of hormonal signals. So your appetite might increase, your cravings might increase. These can become very, very hard to fight against. That's why we kind of implement refeeds throughout the cut, especially as the cut goes on, especially as your body fat percentage goes down. It's more and more important then to have these refeeds. Other than that, this is why I always monitor your biofeedback, and why those questions that I give you are so important. You might be like, why do I have to answer these questions? Some of you don't even answer the questions, and that's okay. Like, I'm not going to make you. I can only ask a certain number of times, but this is why they're important, because I like to monitor your biofeedback. That is like mood, energy, sleep, where you're at in your cycle can have an impact on those answers as well. So I like to put it all together to form that puzzle, to see where you're at hormonally and how your body is responding to those calories. Red flags for me are when you've got low energy, low mood, fatigue, maybe you're not sleeping very well, and the scale is sort of starting to stagnate a little bit. that can be where we need to kind of bump the calories up a little bit, have a little bit of a refeed. If you've been in a calorie deficit for some time, that might be where we start to reverse you out of the calorie deficit, even if it's a little bit earlier than what we were going to do. So I do like to monitor all of that biofeedback. In a deficit, your body is obviously not getting the required energy intake that it needs to function in a day. So you can start to see these negative side effects: irritability, as I said, low mood, low libido. Eventually, sometimes your hair can start falling out because that's really not a priority for your body to hold on to. Dry skin. It's these things can really catch up on you. So that's why I like to monitor it. When you get into maintenance, all of that should even out and you should start to feel better. You should start to have your energy back, your sleep is restored. Everything just feels better when you're in maintenance. The other thing is hormonally, in terms of your cycle. When you're in a deficit, usually PMS, irritability, all of that time of the month can be really, those symptoms can be exacerbated. They can feel a lot worse. They can be harder to navigate. You can crave carbs even more at that time of the month. That's why I always recommend at that time of the month, leading up to your period. So many of you have already said this, but you crave carbs those few days leading up. So just give in, let your body have the extra 100 calories and pure carbs. Just give it carbs. It's not going to put you back. It's probably going to set you up for more success, because eventually those cravings can be really hard to fight. So you're better off just giving it a little bit and just give it pure carbs, so that you can, with those extra calories, so that it can kind of help counteract those cravings a little bit. But anyway, so when you're in that deficit, all of those hormonal fluctuations can be just so bad and exacerbated. And I know that firsthand. My last cut, I did it for 8 or 9 weeks. And after the first cycle, my second cycle was just so bad. Like, I could feel the ovulation. The ovulation symptoms were I could just tell, like they were really prominent. And then PMS symptoms were awful. Everything was just completely out of whack. So coming into maintenance, you can tell the difference. Everything evens out. Your body is happier because you're giving it the extra calories that it needs. Everything's better in maintenance. So you should really want to be in maintenance. But a lot of you get scared about this concept. A lot of you, when I say it's time to reverse out, we need to have a break, we need to hit maintenance for a while, a lot of you get really anxious about that. And I do understand that, because I used to be there. So all I can say is maintenance is not fat gain. It's not a stage where you're going to gain all of this fat. You're not going to gain all your weight back. It's a stage where you're increasing calories. Usually we do it pretty slowly. We call it reversing out. We can do it quickly if you're completely over it, or we can do it gradually. And we increase calories. I kind of estimate where I think your maintenance calories are going to be initially, and we try to hit that number, and we slowly increase. We keep an eye on your weight. We keep an eye on your photos and your measurements. The weight is just one piece of the puzzle with this. You need to keep looking at your photos and your measurements. They will tell the bigger story, because you will see, even though your weight may increase slightly when you're coming into maintenance, that is completely normal. You will see from your photos and your measurements that everything else is pretty much staying the same. You're not gaining the fat. And that's where the photos are super important, because you can see, you can talk yourself off the ledge and say, okay, I still look exactly the same as I did before. So they are really important to keep an eye on. So yes, it is a bit scary. The extra food should feel good. Sometimes people don't even feel like the extra food after being in a deficit for some time, but you really do need to push it a little bit. As you get further into a calorie deficit, your body can start to down-regulate a little bit, where it's expending less energy incidentally throughout the day to counteract the reduction in calories that you are giving it. Just checking. So eventually, towards the end of a deficit, the calorie deficit might not be as big as when you first started, because your body has started to kind of slow itself down a little bit. And this is where the step goal is so important, because by doing that incidental movement, you're forcing yourself to keep moving, even though your body might be sending you signals to slow down, to conserve energy. So yeah, that's where that can come in. So yeah, your hunger levels might not be as high towards the end of a deficit. But we keep pushing and pushing to try to restore this, to try to restore your metabolic health. And this is where some people come unstuck, when they just keep pushing and pushing and pushing until they hit their goal weight, rather than having this break that you need. Because eventually, if they keep pushing, that calorie deficit isn't going to be a deficit anymore. That's going to be their new maintenance, because their body has down regulated to that point. So we do not want that to happen, because that is a hole that you need to dig yourself out of, and it can be really hard. And I care too much about your long-term metabolic health, so I will never let you do that. We are always going to have a break. So you just need to fight those uncomfortable feelings and really understand why it's important. Use it for what it is. Lean into it. Really lean into it. Push yourself with your training. Go back and watch my training principles video. Try and build some muscle. It's really hard for females to build muscle, especially the more experienced we become with strength training. So just go and use it for what it is. Enjoy your food. Keep eating the same sort of foods, and hopefully your deficit foods weren't so different to your maintenance foods. Hopefully they were around about the same sort of things that you normally eat. But there are some important things that you should consider when you come into maintenance. Maintenance is not let it go, eat what you want. It's party time, the deficit's over. Because that's where you can come unstuck, and that's where you can undo some of your hard work. So we don't want that to happen, especially if we're going to be planning another cut. You don't want to have to unravel some of that damage that you did in maintenance in the cut, because the first half of the cut could just be unraveling the damage, and then we make a little bit more headway. So we don't want that. We want to kind of try to maintain that fat loss as much as possible. In order to do that, you probably will want to keep tracking a little bit into maintenance, unless you've got some sort of disordered eating habits, or you're completely mentally over the tracking. I understand that. So that's fine. We can talk about that if that is you. But ideally, you want to kind of track your way into maintenance a little bit, because then we can get a really good picture of where your actual maintenance calories are. Are they 1,800 calories? Are they 2,000 calories? Are they 2,200? Like, we just want to know exactly, roughly, where your maintenance calories are, because then when we go back into a fat loss again, it's going to make it easier for us to understand how much we need to shave off to get into that fat loss. And secondly, it's going to help you understand better about your requirements in maintenance. Maintenance is probably the most important stage to learn and to really understand your body a little bit more. A lot of people skip this. They are so hyper-focused on the fat loss, but this is the stage that you really want to be really trying to concentrate on learning a little bit more and understanding your body and your body's fuel requirements, because this is where you want to spend most of your time, for starters, in life in general. And for seconds, what was I about to say? For seconds, this is where you want to spend most of your life. I had it right there, and it literally just escaped me. This is being in a deficit, isn't it? You go all stupid sometimes. Anyway, let's just move on. That's what I was going to say. So sorry about that. So this will be where you spend most of your time, hopefully, and your life in maintenance. But also, maintenance and keeping the weight off is usually the hardest part of this whole journey. The ability to keep the weight off is the hardest part. And that comes down to your ability to maintain and your ability to learn this maintenance process and to eat the required amount of calories, not too many calories for your output. So this is really important. This is where most people kind of do the yo-yo thing. But with some practice, you can get really good at this. And, you know, you might eventually not have to do another fat loss, or you might have to do just some little short fat losses here and there. I mean, don't get me wrong. Fat loss stages are something that you'll probably keep implementing potentially throughout life. Like, it's going to happen. You know, holidays, vacation, everything catches up to you. And yes, you might notice that you've gained a little bit of extra weight back on after 6 to 12 months. Like, you know what, I'm going to implement another cut. And you know what to do because you've learned that. So you're going to do 8 to 12 weeks of a cut, get some weight, cut some of that fat off, and then get back into maintenance. But it's not and that's something that you need to understand, is that this cycle might continue. You might have to repeat this cycle again further down the track, and that's okay, because heaps of people will find maintenance really hard. The weight does creep back on. It's just our lifestyles. It's our accessibility to high calorie foods these days. It's alcohol. It's socialization. This stage is really hard, so let's not underestimate that. But there are a few things that you can do to make it better so you're more successful in keeping it off. One of them is just reining it in. And a few of you recently have been learning about this. So you might be testing your limits in maintenance. You might be going out on the weekends. You're kind of having a few more drinks. You're not tracking all of your drinks. You're not tracking all of your food on the weekends anymore. You're kind of learning your boundaries. Some of you have noticed that the fat is coming back on, and you need to rein it in. And by reining it in means learning your boundaries of what you can consume, especially on the weekends, to maintain this fat loss. And that can sometimes mean just having a couple of drinks. It's usually around alcohol and weekend food. You do need to learn your boundaries and your limits. But if you're one of those people that just, it's life's too short, you're going to be going crazy on the weekends, that's the way it is. That is okay, and I do understand that, but maybe just learn how to kind of dial back the week, like your controllables, the Monday to Friday, the Sunday to Thursday, whatever it is. Learn how to have a bit less then, so that when it does come the weekends, it's kind of offset a little bit, so the damage isn't so severe. So you do need to kind of work on reining it in, and that's how I explain it. It's just reining it in. You've gone a bit far. Now you need to rein it in and go a little bit, just take it back a notch. That's one thing. Tracking will be important for the start. I heard a analogy the other day, and it's like when you first start driving a car and you don't know your limit and how hard you can hit the pedal to reach the speed limit. Say the speed limit's 80, and you're not sure how hard you can push the pedal to stay at 80. And you kind of keep checking the speedometer. You don't know exactly where you're at. You don't know how fast 80 feels. It's the same sort of thing with maintenance. You're kind of testing the limits. You're learning how hard to push, or how hard you can push over your week to kind of maintain that number, to maintain that body fat percentage. How hard can you push? And it is a learning experience. I personally think that I've become pretty good at maintaining. I know when I'm going a little bit too hard. I know when I've pushed a bit too far, especially after holidays, and I know now how to rein it in. And I usually just go back to my calorie deficit foods for a few days and kind of rein it back in a little bit. I don't go into a full-on cut or anything after a holiday, but I dial it back. I dial back the snacks. I might not have so many snacks during those few days to a week after a holiday. So just learn how to bring it back down a notch. Because if you keep piling on with the snacking and going, the weight will go back on. So you do need to learn your limits with maintenance, and that is the hardest part, but it is also the most important part. So that's pretty much all I want to talk about with maintenance, because it's something that that you just need to live out. And yes, you will potentially hit some mental roadblocks with maintenance. You will start to feel fluffy potentially. Potentially you will feel heavier. You will just feel like you're never hungry, but you're eating and you're not hungry. All of these things can be a bit uncomfortable, because a lot of us are just used to living in a deficit. A lot of us are more comfortable when we have a fat loss goal. So when in the mornings, when we're waking up and we're not seeing that scale go down and down, it's potentially going up a little bit, it can be really unsettling, but you need to push through it. You need to understand your why. If you're tracking through all of this, it's going to make it easier, because you know that you're eating 1,800 calories. You know you're not eating in a surplus to a point where you're gaining a pound a week. So keeping things a little bit more dialed with maintenance, I think, is a really good idea. And I almost think it's more important to do it with maintenance than it is to do it in a cut in some ways, because in some ways in a cut you can kind of just wing it. But with maintenance, you really want to try to learn more about volume, food, limits, I don't want to talk about intuitive eating here because that's a whole nother thing. But eventually, if you don't want to track, it does kind of come down a little bit to intuitive eating. But again, that's another learning process. So this part is really important. Just learn that. By this part, I mean the maintenance part, like learning to live in maintenance. And look at it as an opportunity to grow in some way. Look at it as an opportunity to restore your hormones. You'll probably start to feel happier. You'll become less food focused. You will, trust me on that one, you'll become less food focused. You will have less cravings. You will probably be less inclined to snack because you're satisfied. Your body is not constantly looking for food to fill this deficit. So it's a great stage. I really recommend leaning into it, leaning into the mentality of it. Your skin will start to glow. Your muscles might become more filled out because you're restored all those glycogen stores to a degree. Lean into the muscle growth and development part of this because this is where you can use that energy to really push yourself in the gym. And then if and when you want to do another cut, that's always there. The fat loss is the easy part. I say this to everyone. The fat loss should be for most people, not for everyone, but the fat loss can be the easy part. This part, coming into maintenance and maintaining your weight loss and all of that, and the mental struggles that come around this maintenance period can be the biggest challenge ever. So talk to me about it if you have any problems with this. I hope this has been helpful. If you have any questions, obviously email me, message me, send me a message through the app. If you're in maintenance at the moment, I'm always up for talking about it if you have any questions or concerns. But other than that, have a good day and talk to you soon. Bye.